Punctuation is a necessary part of writing and you have to use it. But thanks to ChatGPT, so many people keep getting it wrong, and now it's up to me to fix that. Okay, let's get on with it. First up is the first one we all learn in school. The full stop, or period for you Americans, is used to end a sentence. Okay, moving on. Unsurprisingly, these ones do exactly what they say they do. An exclamation mark serves to show that a sentence is exclamatory. This means a heightening of emotion like aggression or surprise. Just as unsurprisingly, question marks are used to ask a question. They show a rising tone when asking about something. Now, when you want to write an exclamatory question, you may want to end your sentence with one of these. But there is already a symbol for this. It's called an interrobang, and as you can see, it has a very original design. Now we get into talking about main and subordinate clauses. If you don't know, main clauses are the parts of a sentence that can stand alone as their own sentence. Subordinate clauses are all the other bits of a sentence that can't. A comma is used to break up these clauses and to give your lungs a little bit of a rest. Then there's the Oxford comma, which you might have seen people talking about online recently. The Oxford comma refers to when it is used to separate the last of a list from the rest, stopping the last two from looking like one conjoined point. To put it simply, it turns this into this. Just be careful about overusing commas. If you connect too many clauses with commas and they don't need to be connected, that's called comma splicing. Like a comma, you can use a dash to separate main and subordinate clauses, but the dash is a bit more particular about where you use it. You use a dash when you want to include a subordinate clause into a sentence, but this clause is typically slightly less relevant to the current topic. It's like you're inserting a bonus fun fact for what you're writing about for your reader to find. You also use a dash when splitting a sentence between a line break. This could be because the writer has reached the end of a line before they finished and want to make it clear that they are carrying on, or because they're inserting something between the parts of a sentence, like a stage direction in the middle of dialogue. But that's not all. You can also use a dash midway through a sentence to show the writer or speaker being cut off, like this. Brackets always come in pairs, with open or closed variations to surround a subordinate clause. But what are they used for? How particular are these ones? Well, brackets are used to add a note about whatever was just mentioned to further define it for the reader. But what if you want to write your shopping list? Well, you would use a colon. Colons allow you to segue into giving precise information in the form of a list or a definition. This one gives further clarification to a topic that was just mentioned. It allows a sentence to lead into a note on a word or phrase, giving it more detail whilst not quite linking to the sentence as a whole. This is often considered the hardest of the punctuation marks to understand and apply, so here's an example. Now hang on, haven't we already covered this one? Well no, this is a hyphen, which just happens to use a very similar symbol as the dash, only usually slightly shorter to differentiate them. You use a hyphen when connecting two words when they are used commonly enough as a pair to be considered their own term. For example, if you had a brother-in-law, you would use hyphens to connect the words. This works the same for colours when differentiating between shades, or for double-barreled names. Now, apostrophes have quite a few uses, so let's get started. Firstly, they're used to show possession. Put apostrophe s after a noun to show that what comes after it belongs to it. However, if the noun already ends in an s, just put the apostrophe after the word on its own. Apostrophes are also used to show a contraction. That's when you splice a noun and a verb together, with the apostrophe replacing the lost letters. But that's not all. You can use apostrophes to highlight a specific word or phrase that you are using as a talking point, like I did a minute ago. Or as a way to separate a non-word from the rest of the sentence, like I also did a minute ago. This also applies to referencing a small part of a quote, so that you can embed it into the text rather than writing the whole quote again. But recently, I've been seeing apostrophes used in another way, to pluralise a noun. That is definitely not correct. These bad boys sit around a quote, showing the reader where it starts and finishes. Hang on, there's something wrong with that sentence. For starters, there needs to be a punctuation mark before the quote starts to lead into it, and the punctuation to end the quote needs to be before the closing quotation mark. Now that's much better. But now we're all out of the important punctuation marks, but we still have some less used ones left to cover. This is an ampersand. As you can probably guess from the name, it's the symbol for and. The unusual name comes from Latin, being the result of slurring the phrase and per se and over time. This is an asterisk. In formal writing, these are used as markers to insert a note or correction somewhere else on the page. In informal writing, asterisks are used to show emboldened or emphasised text. This is a slash. Use it when you want to show options in your text, showing that the topic you're writing about applies to this or that. When read aloud, the slash is not spoken. The two options are just read aloud consecutively, with no word in between. This is a tilde, which is used to represent a shorthand of the Latin word circa when writing dates. This tells the reader that the date is not definite or specific, only approximately or around that date. This symbol has a few names. Officially, it's known as a pound sign or a hash. In formal writing, it's used to denote a number value. However, you may know it by its informal name, the hashtag. This comes from how it is commonly used on the internet, to tag an online post using the hash symbol to lead into the tag. This is an ellipsis. These are used midway through a sentence or at the end to show a trail off. This can convey a cliffhanger in a narrative, or fading out of or losing track of a thought. Right, all done, off you go. And don't you dare pluralise a noun with an apostrophe ever again.